The Moreness Show with hosts Sil and Beena is about to bring depth and value into your life.
Welcome to the Moreness Show with Sil and Beena, and we are here again. And today is a continuity show of the previous one, the last one we did about the materialization, the power of intent. And this is something very interesting because I see many people talking about, like, of course, we all are aware of the term law of attraction, law of assumption, or whatever you want to call it. And everybody is like kind of having a curiosity about this, that how actually we can materialize things, how we can actually manifest things, in other words. And this is a topic I was bringing in continuously into like on and off in the Way-Of-Impeccability and Moreness-Project because I was excited about this and I was trying to practice that too. As a person who is coming, it was a new thing for me that how this can actually, though the topic, the actual essence of this topic is not a new thing. We all are
No.
aware of it. We do materialize things. We do manifest things. We all are co-creative, whatever you want to call it. But again, as always, there is something more. Why there is something more? Because it is coming from the Moreness concept, the Moreness perspective. And Moreness perspective is not like, okay, yes, you are just wishing things and you are just saying out loud that, oh, abracadabra and things are going to manifest. Because in Moreness culture, in Moreness project, there is always an unbending intent behind that. And the intent is the real magic. It's not about just dreaming something. Yes, of course, these are fun things, and of course, you can do just to use your emphasis and put more focus on it. They are just merely tools. But the real power, the engine behind that is the intent. Not just like, okay, yes, my intention, but the intent. And this is what Sil describe in many, of course, many ways that what is the difference between intention and the intent. So we are not going into details again because if someone is watching us, they know that, okay, what's the difference from Sil's perspective. But today we are going to share a story. Story which has, of course, it has the law of attraction, of course, content in it. And also there is something very special and more than that. So Sil, please continue with this.
It's more about the power of intent rather than law of attraction, because law of attraction is it's a very corrupted term. And I don't like to really use it. Intent, it's about the application of intent, which is a power. And like all powers, we have to be careful. If we use a power, we have to not use the power in order to truly have power over the power. Otherwise, or at least have the ability to not use that power. Otherwise, the power has power over you. When we have a power, we have to have the power to not use the power. It sounds like a bit weird. Well, what's the point of it then? The point is to use it when needed, yes, and to use it sparingly. If you start to rely on the power, well, one, you become vulnerable, and two, right, you now the power will start to rule you, and that's the end of you. Now, think of it again. When we look,
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said use your power when it is needed. But since my overall experience with you, you always say use it when it is appropriate, not needed, not wanted.
Correct. So you might have a want that's really important to you. Okay, it's not technically a need, but it's so important and you want it so much that it kind of becomes a need. If appropriate, that's the key. If appropriate, then it's not a problem. If appropriate. But we have to be careful, like I said, because we can have many appropriate wants and desires and needs, but at the same time, we can also then become vulnerable in the usage of this power because we stop relying on ourselves, right? So it's very key to understand this. And it's like, people who just use technology for stuff and they don't know how to do anything for themselves. And then when the power goes off, then they're lost, right? Can't do anything. So we have to be very, very careful of that, right? And this is psychologically even more important. Plus, intent has built-in safeguards. Now, think of the universe or think of whoever and setting up a system. Let's say you designing a world and you want to design a world where people could have something like intent, have the power to materialize things. Will you just set it up and just give it to them? No, because they'll cause all sorts of trouble with it. You know how people are if they have power, even just ordinary power, you know, like just being in charge in the office or something, how they abuse this. Yeah. Never mind real power, yeah? Power to change the world, the universe. Imagine. No. So you have to build in safeguards. And there are many, many safeguards. One of them is that, you know, you have to have a real deep intent. It has to be an earnest intent. It has to be genuine. Plus, you have to have things like patience. You have to be able to sustain that interest and that intent, which means you have to have some kind of discipline. Then you have to wait for it and maybe have to go through a bit of struggle and stress. You have to have forbearance, in other words, and then wait for the time to come. So there are safeguards against just making, you know, using your intent in an unnecessary way or an inappropriate way. And this is really cool because the universe is helping you. It's saying, yes, you can have the power, but be careful of what you want. We've mentioned this before. We have to be very careful of what we want. Do we really want what we want? For the most part, no. So we have to understand this. Now, when, however, something does come along that grabs you and that is important and it is powerful and it is appropriate and it is awesome and there is a moreness to it, that's a different story, as we are going to represent with the story. Now, I'm going to read the story. It's called Sophie and the Philosopher. And I'm going to read the first paragraph only, and then we're going to give the backstory. Because the first paragraph applies to last week, the continuation of our show about intent. But the rest of the story, what the story is actually about, the story is not about intent, really. The story is about, well, you'll see, there's a deep moreness to the story. Only the first paragraph applies to last week. So I'll read the first paragraph and then Beena is going to elaborate, give the backstory to the first paragraph, and then we'll carry on with the rest, right? So here we go. Brackets gets into storytelling mode. You know, reading stories and reading poetry is a great joy, and I feel that it's about respecting the material, to read it thoroughly and read it and give it your full voice, right? It's about respect, right? And that's part of impeccability. One of the key understandings of impeccability is to give due respect. And this is giving due respect, right?
Yes.
My voice is a little thin today. It's not nice. Oh, anyway. Sophie and the Philosopher. Sophie encountered an idea which enveloped her soul. Sophie encountered the idea of a philosopher who would invite her to learn with him. Sophie's dream becomes real. Her intent, her desire, manifests, materializes as the philosopher actually comes into her life. Really does invite her to learn with him. Wow! Exhilarates Sophie as she jumps on her bed in joy. My dream has happened. It's here in my life. For real.
For real.
For real. So what's the background? What happened before this, Beena? Because this is now in story form, but it's a true story, right? And you know, I put it into story form, but this is based on very real events.
This is exactly.
Beena was reading a book, right? Beena was reading a book.
This is exactly 100% true. Whatever you just shared in just one paragraph. Nothing is actually fictional. Nothing is just created for the sake of drama or anything.
Right.
This is exactly 100% what happened. Anyway, so what happens with me that I used to do reading books for one of my friend who was like, okay, yes, very senior and of course very social. He used to go to book clubs and other gatherings, social gatherings where he can flaunt, of course, his readings. So what, and of course he's a busy person and he has a family and all that. So what he was doing, that he was giving me books he wants to read and I could not buy. Of course, they were expensive and I was not aware of it also. So he was buying books, or maybe I don't know that he was renting or whatever. So he was giving me just for 2 days, one book for 2 days, and say, okay, Beena, just read it. And then I will, okay, and just give me a summary of it, like what you got out of it. And I was doing it for my, of course, my own sake, like, okay, yes, I will get a book to read. And he gave me a book named Sophie's World. And I said, okay, yes. And I started reading. But in that book, if you guys are aware, because it's a very famous book, this book is all about the actual philosophy lessons. The writer actually put it in a very dramatic and, of course, a fictional way. But they were actually really deep, thorough, basic philosophy lessons. Not really complex, but yes, very basic philosophy for newcomers, for children, or for, of course, like a person like me. And I read that. So I didn't get any
It's an introduction to philosophy through the ages, which is very nice because it's in a story form, and it's very, very entertaining, very nice, and it comes at you in a very nice way. You know, it's not dry and boring, and you really learn stuff, and it's interesting. It's well done. Very, very, very well done book. Because it's an entertaining book as well as an educational and informative book. Yeah?
Yes. And when I was reading that, I was not understanding the basic concept of that book. Like, okay, yes, it is about understanding philosophy and the history also. But the idea, the basic idea was that a young girl living in woods, literally in woods, like in a remote area. And one fine day, she got mail, and in that mail, she was having philosophy lessons with a letter from a philosopher, unknown philosopher, unseen one, who just chose her to be his student. And he wants to teach her about philosophy. And I was amazed by that idea. Like how
the idea grabbed you, right, Beena? Idea grabbed
you. Yes. That how it is possible that someone living in a remote area, and the philosopher, a teacher, came into her life, and that teacher chose her. Not that, okay, yes, that young girl was looking for someone. No, someone chose her, and not even choosing her, start giving immediately without even getting a consent. Like, okay, yes, this is the thing, and you are going to do this. And I was amazed by that idea, and I was wondering about like how if this could happen. And this is the idea, the philosophy. Without having any idea about what philosophy is, I was just thinking about, the idea that someone can be that lucky that, okay, yes, someone will choose and then they start giving her. It was, for me, this idea was like the most amazing idea in the world at that time. Because for me, learning is like, oh my God, if someone is just giving me something which I can learn and grow, this is the most precious thing in my life, and still it is. And I really, really appreciate that. I'm keen to actually learn all the time.
I love learning. You're a power learner. Yes.
365 days a week and 24/7. This is who I am. And that idea really grabbed me, and I was thinking about that without deliberately trying to manifest or materialize anything. I was just thinking about that, and I was
but
amazed.
For you, it was like, this would be a great thing for me to have in my life.
It was like, it was the most luckiest thing, the most bounty in life, that someone can just come and start giving you lessons like that. And then, of course, the adventure they had after that. Amazing story. So that was the backstory of this book. And then when I was doing my job at Arts Council, it was a temporary job. And the day I finished my job, second day, I just got up like at the same time I was going to the job. And I was like, okay, what I'm going to do now? So I was scrolling through my news feed on my Facebook, and I saw, I still remember the background post, and it was in a yellow and goldenish color, very different, very unusual to the regular post I used to see. And I saw that, and there was a long text underneath. It was saying, okay, we are looking for post beta tester, which means that, okay, the program or whatever it was is already been tested, and now we are looking for post beta testers. And without having any idea that we are about philosophy, I said, I'm in. And also the commercial break is in. And we will continue after this short commercial break.
Very
And
big
I will share.
Cliffhanger.
Yes.
Cliffhanger.
I'm going to share the whole detail of that. See you after the break.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to the Moreness Show with Sil and Beena and the adventure story of Beena at the time, because I was just sharing the backstory of the story Sil shared before earlier about Sophie and the Philosopher. He named
right. You were saying you saw this post on Facebook, looking for a post beta tester.
Yes, I saw a post. Randomly, we were not friends on Facebook. We had no mutual friends either. I don't know how.
Yeah.
Universe just gave me that okay, yes, this is the thing. And without having any further delay and about going into detail, what is this and all that, I literally jumped into this and I said, oh yes, I'm in. And then I said, I would love to be in if I could, because I assumed that, okay, this is something not online. And I was like, okay, yes, I would love to. And I got immediate response from Sil. And he says, oh, yes, okay, why not? It's online. And I said, oh, okay. And then I started asking about some, I don't know, there's some question. There were some, like, okay, a couple of questions.
I said it's not free. That's what I said.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I said, there is some cost involved. Yeah.
Yes. And I said, okay, sorry, I cannot do this because I cannot afford this. That was the story. And I said, okay, no problem. But Sil says, no, there are many ways to flip the pancake. Yes.
To fry a pancake, I said.
Fry a pancake. Yes. I always forget this. Yes.
Yes.
To fry a pancake. And I was like, what? And then he says, okay, yes, you can pay me in a different way. Again, you just remember these dialogues because one of our dear friend said that why you were not suspicious. Okay, I'm going to go back to this. And he says, oh yeah. And I said, okay, yes, what's involved? And he says, okay, yes, you can do this. And but you have to share your journey online. And I'm like, wow, okay, I have no problem. So that was the thing. And then when he says that, okay, you are in. And of course, there is another story involved that, okay, we were chatting on Zoom. I was trying to connect with that. I had at that time Chromebook, which was not really appropriate for
we talked about this, about the patients in a previous show already.
Yes. So that was another story. But the moment he says you are in, and I said, okay, yes, I'll come back tomorrow. Into this program.
Which program?
And the Moreness-Project.
Way-Of-Impeccability, yes.
And the moment I just disconnect that call, I ended that call, I was literally jumping on my bed without having any idea that what I'm going to learn. But my subconscious was aware there is some substance, because the post was unusual, the response was unusual, the patience was unusual, and the willingness to share was super unusual. So a lot of unusual things, a lot of newness was there. And I jumped in. So what I was commenting about, that one of our mutual friend, he asked me that, okay, why you were not suspicious? And in that moment, I realized that, oh, there was something to be suspicious about. I'm sharing this because when you have your heart and soul and mind connected, you don't become stupid or oblivious, but you become more open. And you materialize good things, very filtered, very customized things in your life. And this is what my life is. This is my life. When you have this openness towards moreness, towards awareness, you actually materialize good people, good situation in your life, good perspectives in your life. And this is what happened. Of course, I was not aware. I was just living my life. And I had 0% idea that this could mean something else. And I was amazed by that. How a person can even think about this. I was super amazed by that. Okay, yes, he offered me something. Okay, he says, okay, oh, Beena, people are out there and they have traps and all these things. This is how people talk. But this is how usually people talk. This is not how Moreness people talk. There was nothing, though, no suspiciousness into this. There was no hidden agenda. I said, okay, I cannot afford. He says, okay, there are many ways to pay. And I was like, okay, yes, tell me what it is. There was nothing negative about this. No shallowness. Yes. Okay.
And I would say the key, the core, the one central overriding mood and atmosphere and attitude and mindset was earnestness. Right, Beena?
Yes.
Right. Yes. From my point, I was very earnest in what I was doing. And from my side, I immediately heard and saw and perceived Beena's earnestness. Capital E earnestness. It's a very big deal. Now, I bring up earnestness because this is why, even though at the time I really did need paying participants, right? Because this was my business. It was a new business I was starting.
Yes.
But nonetheless, okay, I'll make it work in some way or another, because there was no way I was letting go of Beena. That's why when we got onto the first Zoom call and it was just communications kept on dropping in, it was like a couple of hours that we sat there. I'm happy to be patient because it's worthwhile. And I want to illustrate this, not to point out my patience. Fine, I have ridiculous patience, but that's not the point of it. The point is to illustrate how intent works. One thing, if you are going to have an intent, it needs to be an earnest desire.
Here's the key.
It's a very big difference between having a desire or a want and an earnest desire or an earnest want. Different thing. Yes? I desire this. Is it an earnest desire? No, not really. Yeah, I want a Ferrari. Is that a really earnest one? Well, I'd like it to be, but I can't honestly say these, right? An earnest desire, an earnest want is something else entirely. This is the key to intent. You cannot fake earnestness. This is the magic of earnestness. You cannot fake it, right? And when we are earnest, it matters. The universe listens to you, like the mother. I mentioned the story of the father, right? The image that I have is mother's busy in the kitchen and she's busy working, and all the kids are there, mothers and their friends and auntie this, whatever. And she just, whatever, go play, and she just ignores them. But then, kid comes and asks an earnest question. What does the mother do? Puts her things down. They wipe their hands on the apron like that, right? And then they turn and face the child and say, yes, what is it? Right? They stop everything they do and they give their complete full attention to that earnest child. The universe is no different when you have an earnest desire, an earnest want, an earnest question. Yes, when you are earnest like that, you get heard. But earnestness, like I said, it's not something you can manufacture or create. And it can't be artificial. Earnestness is always real. So earnestness is integral to intent. Very key to understand this. Beena was absolutely inordinately earnest in wanting to learn. This was very obvious, right? And so when I said I shouldn't even really know fully, I more or less explained more or less what Way-Of-Impeccability is about. It's a self-change, life-change program. Oh, wonderful. She was very keen, very eager. So it didn't matter to me, the only reason I said do something was because if you give stuff for free, sometimes it devalues what you give, right? And it's a sad reality. Now, Beena isn't like that, but I didn't know entirely. But also, I did want her to write that and make the posts about the journey because it's valuable for her. Subsequently, I've actually incorporated this into the program itself. At that time, I wasn't quite sure. I was a little cautious about giving the participants a lot to do. Yeah, but now if you want to do this, you've got to be prepared to do all of these things. They do matter. They really are important. And if you really take that journaling seriously, you'll end up writing a book about your journey because it's a transformative journey, right? Much like it was for Sophie in the book. Yeah. But we're going to go a little bit further, right? In the Sophie story. So the Sophie story, our Sophie and the Philosopher isn't the same as, it's a different Sophie. Maybe we should spell Sophie with the Y to distinguish it. But anyway, right, Beena? But Sophie, the word Sophie is an important name because Sophie means wisdom, knowledge. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is very key. Anyhow, so I want to also just get back to the very first line of the story. A very important first line, right? We have to be careful sometimes with reading and just jumping to the next sentence. That's what the capital R reading is. You read one sentence at a time, one idea, even one phrase at a time. So let's break down this first sentence, which is crucially important to understanding the entire part of the intent story, this first paragraph. Then the rest of the story is about something else entirely, which we're going to come to now, right? So the first sentence and the first phrase there is Sophie encountered an idea. Encountered. Yeah. Encountered an idea. An idea encountered Sophie, if you want to really say it that way, both times, right? An idea which enveloped her soul.
Yes.
Enveloped her soul. This is crucial to intent. Your soul needs to be enveloped, and that's where the earnestness comes from, right? Your soul is enveloped.
This is the missing thing. When we talk about the law of attraction and the law of assumption, this is always about, oh, I just got this idea, and then now my heart wants to have that. Mostly we are just charmed by the newness of things. We don't get into this the real depth of it, because Sil always shares such a wonderful analogy, and of course the example for that everybody wants to have a Ferrari, but do you really want? Do your circumstances, your life has that space to have Ferrari, and what it is going to serve for you? This analogy is very actually have more depth into it. Well, we assume that, oh yes, he is saying right, but it has more depth because there is always a connection missing in the mundane, regular thing of law of attraction or law of assumption, which is about the connectivity of soul.
Yes.
What this materialization, any object, what is going to serve? What actually it is going to serve to your soul? Is it going to enhance your soul? Is it going to enrich your soul or not? This is the missing link. This is the next, okay, I don't like to use these terms of next level, but this is, I think that, okay, it is appropriate to use that. In the Moreness-Culture, in the Moreness-Project, this is the next level of law of attraction and law of assumption, where you get all three connected. And every materialization and manifestation actually serves all three: your mind, your body, your heart, and your soul.
And for soul, we can substitute spirit, your deep self, your real self, right? So don't get too hung up on the term self. And just you could say your moreness, right? That's to me the best term here. But in the story, this is the way it came. So let's just continue a little bit more here, right? And then I'll read the story. I'm just gonna break down the first paragraph.
Yes.
Sophie encountered the idea of a philosopher. Encountered, right? It's enveloped her soul. She encountered an idea. Sophie encountered the idea of a philosopher.
Yes.
She encountered, this was a new thing for her. A philosopher who would invite her to learn with him.
Yes.
See now, in Beena's reality, she didn't encounter Sophie, the character, encountering a philosopher. When she read that, it was an idea that encountered her. She was in her own mind and space inside.
Yes.
Wow, that would be wonderful if it happened to me. Wasn't
yes.
Oh, it's wonderful happening to Sophie. See?
No.
So in this case, Beena encountered the idea of a philosopher. A philosopher who would invite her to learn with him. Not Sophie, but in this case, Sophie being Beena, right?
Yes.
Sophie's dream becomes real. Her intent, her desire manifests, materializes as the philosopher actually comes into her life. Really does invite her to learn with him. And that's very key. See? Now, look at that sentence. One little tiny word there. Really does invite her to learn with him.
Yes.
Not from.
Yes.
Right? In the book, it's from.
Yes.
But in our interaction, it was with. Yes? Very, very crucial. Right? Wow. Exhilarate. Yes. Wow. Exhilarate Sophie as she jumps on her bed in joy. My dream has happened. It's here in my life for real. And we'll continue with paragraph 2 after the break.
Yes.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to the bonus show with Sil and Beena. And before the break, Sil was sharing a story, and we'll continue
Right. So yeah, I was telling Beena during the break, so we better get reading here, otherwise, we're not going to run out of time. All right. Let's continue with our story. Her mom comes to investigate. What's going on? Nothing. I'm just excited. Exhales Sophie, struggling to contain herself. Nothing except dreams can come true. Intents can materialize. Sophie continues jumping for a while, because this is beyond imagining the incredibleness of what's transpired. The philosopher she has manifested has asked her to be in connection with him and learn philosophy. and share with him her journey. Wow, what a dream come true.
Absolutely.
But then Sophie says, here we come to the real point of the story.
Yes.
But then Sophie says, but wait. I am Sophie. Sophie is short for sophisticated. Sophie, sophisticated. Same name. I am Sophie. I am sophisticated. I am Sophie the sophisticated. Wait. The philosopher has invited me to learn and partake in learning and growing and knowledge and expansion and awareness and intent and all these magical things. But I know little. I know I am more. One thing I am not going to do is be influenced by the philosopher. Exclamation mark. One thing I am not going to do is be influenced by the philosopher. Nope. That's why I'm Sophie the sophisticated. I will not be influenced. However, I cannot be blind to the moreness the philosopher promises. Now, I am going to be receptive. I am going to take for granted what the philosopher has to share makes sense. Sophie is emphatic, liking and understanding emphasis. I am going to be open to seeing sense beyond what I can see now. I know my imagination is limited. I know my knowledge is limited. I'm going to trust the philosopher makes sense. I am going to trust without trusting. I am going to trust it makes sense. But this does not mean I am Sophie the sophisticated. That just because it does make sense, it does not mean I have to be influenced. No, I do not have to be. I can choose to be. Not only can I choose to, but I have to choose. I have to choose to decide whether or not I wish to take on what I know. So I am never influenced, so that it's always my choice and what I absorb, what I make my own, even if it might be all of it. Doesn't matter. Always it needs to be a choice. This is Sophie's sophistication. Her profound receptivity. She is never influenced. She always does maintain her independence of being. Yet she changes profoundly at the same time. What a magical story.
Yes. Indeed.
So before we continue, there's more to the story, because this is a Moreness story, and with Moreness there's always more, right? Yes. The story could end there, but I just want to make the point here. When it comes to intent, and since this is our bigger theme, think of it from the universe's point of view. Yes. So when people come and they encounter intent, idea, wishes, wish fulfillment, willpower, law of attraction, all these things, you sort of mess around with it, and you get something that comes into your life. Oh, it really works. And you try again, and then it doesn't work. And then you give up. Right? Well, first of all, the universe wants to say, are you earnest about actually learning? And furthermore, are you easily influenced? If you are, it's not going to give you any more. Because if you are easily influenced, you're going to become a robot.
Yes.
And that's no good. The intent of the universe, from a Way-Of-Impeccability perspective, the intent of the universe, from a Moreness-Culture perspective, the intent of the universe is the enhancement and development of awareness. Yes. That's what it's all about. That's what life is all about. This is the meaning and purpose of life. Enhancement, development of awareness. If you don't grow your awareness, don't enhance it, don't develop it, then you're going against what the point of everything is. You start looking at your life, every single thing that happens in your life, this just happened for a reason. It happens for a good reason. What is the good reason? The good reason is the enhancement, development of your awareness. Now, good is not always nice. It's good to enhance your awareness. I bump my toe on the furniture because I'm not paying attention. Well, the lesson is pay attention, see? So there's a goodness to it, even though it's not nice. You need to understand this difference. This is absolutely crucial. But I want to make the point here about receptivity and choosing and thinking about what's going on and deciding, but also the sophistication of saying, I don't have enough information, enough knowledge, enough sense, enough perspective, enough discernment. I don't have the tools to truly be able to decide now yet. So therefore, I have to trust that what I'm going to encounter does make sense. But even though it does make sense, I'm not going to be influenced. It's a very subtle, sophisticated, ultra-sophisticated point. That's why in this story, it's Sophie the sophisticated, right? It's supposed to be the story, which is just Sophie. Sophie the sophisticated is incredibly sophisticated in this capital R receptivity. So she gives the benefit of the doubt to assume that it makes sense, because if you don't assume it makes sense, you cannot hear it as if it made sense. You automatically start in your limited awareness saying, and you find problems and you shut down, you don't hear it. So first you have to be completely open to it actually making sense, even though it's completely new and foreign and blows your mind, and right, you have to be open and allow it in, and then only from a kind of reverse engineer it, and then decide if you want to accept it or not, right? Once you've been able to see whether it makes sense or not.
Yeah? Yes. So I have a question, because you were saying that you really made emphasis on not being influenced by anyone, and also you were saying that be receptive. What's the difference? What's the difference? How we can maintain this balance?
Say again now.
How we can maintain this balance, that be receptive and not be influenced by it.
So we do so by trusting the intent to goodness of another. They may be mistaken, but when it comes to their intent to goodness, I have to trust this. So I give them the benefit of the doubt, and I listen to all of it as if it makes sense, right? So I'm entertaining your idea as if it makes sense. In other words, I give it my full attention and my full support, and I engage my confirmation bias, but I'm engaging it positively. So I'm using confirmation bias positively. So I'm engaging positive confirmation bias to say, oh, I believe that it makes sense. And therefore my mind starts saying, how does it make sense? And it finds all the ways it makes sense, right? But I'm also honest. And this is the key, right? We not only trust the intent to goodness of the other, but we trust our own intent to goodness, and we trust our own impeccability, which demands that we are honest. Yes, especially with ourselves. So now, when I go through it all, I said, all right, I've given your idea, your theory, your philosophy, whatever it is, I've given it the full benefit of that, and I've listened to it, and I've supported it all along the way. I've found every possible way to make it work, to make it so. But in all honesty, I cannot. Sorry, I have these doubts, I have these reservations. Then you bring it up with the person, you discuss it, right? And then if they were really earnest and honest and honest, and say, wow, I never thought of that. Yeah, you're right. I didn't realize that. Okay, I must that. And then they adapt and change. Or you find out the person has got some other agenda, and then okay, you can let it go.
Yes.
Right? But we're assuming we're dealing with those who don't have nefarious intents and incentives, right? That are on the level. So that's how we maintain this balance of receptivity, is trusting the intent to goodness and trusting our own impeccability. And not just trusting our impeccability, but using it also, right? To apply it, to be disciplined, to be thorough, to be conscientious, to be scrupulous. Those are all part of impeccability, yes? And to give it due respect, which is, right, to assume it makes sense. That's giving it due respect. So the entire process of receptivity is the application of impeccability.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
But for me, in other words, or in a more simple way, that receptivity, why you can maintain this balance, and how we can maintain this balance. The first thing is, be secure in yourself. Be honest with yourself, and be really secure in yourself. If you are not secure, then you are going to attack other people. You are going to defend other people. You will get into this mindset that, oh, I cannot be influenced by. I'm not going to allow anything or any idea.
Or conversely, those who are insecure are easily influenced.
Yes.
Yeah. Either way.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So this is the problem basically. When you are open to, people get like really close because and they simply refuse any idea because they feel insecure in their own being. If you are not insecure and you know that, okay, the first choice of being curious about something was mine, and I'm going to respect my choice. I was curious and I'm going to allow that other person or the situation or any other perspective or idea an appropriate time to explain it to myself, and I'll be open to get this thing. This is the basic and the real essence and the real core and heart of Way of Impeccability and Moreness-Culture, to be open and honest, and also allow the process of sharing happen, because you cannot share anything if the other person is not open to receive.
Yes. So it's to be open and honest and secure.
Yes.
And that's what you were. Our relationship is so marvelous because Beena came into it with that security of herself. However, she acknowledged, wow, you know a lot of stuff. You have a lot of stuff that I can learn from. And also, she also acknowledged and understood that she responded to my intent of learning with me. And we're on a marvelous journey. Every single day we learn together with each other. It's most marvelous. All right. When we come back from the break, just perfect timing. We'll read the rest of the story, right?
Yes, but before I go, I just want to just wrap it up in just one more thing. When you want to, this whole idea of teaching goes one way. Someone is giving you and you are at the receiving end. But when it is about sharing, then you have to be secure in yourself. To receive without having any obligation of nonsense, you have to be open to receive. And this is the essence. This is the real heart of sharing. We will continue after a short commercial break.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zorek, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
I'd prefer to.
Welcome back to the Moreness Show with Sil and Beena, and we are here again after this commercial break, and Sil was sharing about the story, Sophie and the Philosopher. Please, Sil, continue.
All right. So we ended right where the story was, where it seemed like, yet she changes profoundly at the same time, right? What a magical story. But now there's a bit more to the story. Sophie and the Philosopher, they chat about everything. They become very, very, very close. They grow into each other's heart. They become more than just Sophie and the Philosopher. They become sophistication. They become philosophical sophistication.
Yes.
In brackets, which means application. They become more in this profound intimacy of their souls and spirit. Then they discover on a day, they asked, what are we? They ask themselves, what are we? As they ponder and think, they realize, we are characters in the story. Wow! Wow! This is a surprise. We are characters in the story. Dang. Now, some who heard this said, this is dreadful. That's a terrible thing. Others who heard this said, that's interesting. That's surprising. That's a twist. What do you do now? But Sophie and the philosopher, they are sophisticated philosophers. Philosophers of sophistication itself. They said, if we are characters and we are aware we are characters, does this not mean we can write our own story?
Yes.
And then Sophie and the philosophers set about writing their own story from that moment on. The end. True story.
Yes, true story.
There's an attribution from origin stories of the new nobility. Did you know that this was an origin story of the new nobility?
No, I had no idea about this. Wow.
Yeah, it's right there at the bottom of the story. I mean, we've read this many times,
but sometimes like you miss things, even though we just pay a lot of things. But because I always get so emotional and excited about the story.
Yes.
This might not be very interesting or very really emotional story for other people. But people who are into moreness, people who are into learning, truly learning and growing, they will see that moreness in that story. They will see that emotional connectivity to the story. They will see that soul connectivity to the story. Because this story actually is the projection of all your mind, your heart and soul all together. The true trinity of the Moreness-Culture is mind, heart, and soul together. And this is what we are actually discussing here. When everything gets aligned and they come together, they actually conjunct, then you will see the miracle, the actual miracle happening. When you have this understanding that, okay, yes, this is what my mind wants, this is what my soul is connected to, this is what my heart really strives for, then you get a never-ending, never-fading happiness, joy in your life.
Moreness.
Then you never get into this, the newness is fading and now I don't like this Ferrari, I want Lamborghini or I want something else. No, you always stay excited, keen, and happy and joyful and earnest about the materialization, sorry for my fumble, materialization of your intent. This is what is happening right now in this moment for me and Sil, because at that moment, everything was aligned. Our mind, our heart, and our soul. And everything, like my mind, my heart, and my soul is always getting nourishment from that because they are connected. So this is the essence, this is the fruit, this is the magic of never you will get into this just superficial level or surface level of law of attraction, law of assumption, but go a bit further, actually a whole lot better, more into this, and connect your soul, connect with the soul of the universe, and then materialize whatever you want in your life.
And that right there, I said last week, or we said, right? We said intent has to be connected to attunement.
Yes.
What did Beena just said? You have to connect to the soul of the universe. This is attunement.
Exactly.
Right? And you can substitute soul, you can say spirit, flow, whatever. You don't have to say universe, you can say whatever you want to. It doesn't matter. The essence of isness, of the moreness out there, which is why I love this term moreness. So it's such a rich term and it is so useful in so many instances. And this entire story is a story of moreness. Intent is a moreness concept. It's layered, it's got depth. The story has lots of layeredness. Yes, it is connected to the story of Sophie's world, but it also diverges, right? Because in the story, Sophie, for one, is not particularly sophisticated. Yes. Secondly, the philosopher teaches her, and Sophie sort of kind of learns. She's not a very good student, right? Whereas in the real story, our story, there was never teaching.
No.
Always sharing. Always sharing. I learn as much as Beena does. Yes, I have a lot of information and I bring a lot, but that doesn't mean I don't also learn. This, this receptivity of Beena's, this is what the joy and application. Anyway, I won't go into how much I learned. But then also in the story, in Sophie's world, that's the twist that, they find out their characters in the story. But that's where it sort of ends. And there's a lot of ambiguity, and the fans they're a little put out by the ending. They're not quite happy. It's not a great ending for the fans. I like the story, but the ending not so much. But in our thing, we take this because of intent. We take it that we are the characters and we write our own story. Right? And then there's the extra layeredness of it being an origin story for the new nobility. But that's something we'll talk about next. Yeah, right, Beena?
Yes, what a wonderful connection. What a wonderful connection, and of course a very, very beautiful thread to what is coming next week. And we are going to share about the new nobility. Yes?
Yes, and perhaps we'll read the origin story next week. Yeah, how about that?
Wonderful.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And just before we go, if you guys have any question, if you're curious about it, if you don't like anything, please do share. Because we see views on our videos, but mostly people are just quietly listening. This is not the sharing concept. Okay, if you are here, please do share your perspective. We would love to receive the love notes from the universe, as we call questions are the love notes from the universe. Okay, stay connected, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
This has been The Moreness Show with Sil and Beena. Tune in each week as they focus on bringing joy and peace of being to us all. Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold, Brave TV network. Powered by B2 Studios.